Good evening. It's so nice of you to join us.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Remember Television. We're thrilled to have with us today Kathy Garver, a longtime, very successful actress on the stage and screen, and of course doing voiceovers. She's our special guest today.
Thank you, Chuck. It's great to be here.
Great. You came to the Inland Empire as a kid, and really your father brought the family to the San Bernardino area because he was an architect by trade, right? And he had some special projects in San Bernardino. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Sure. He was an architect contractor, and I was born in Long Beach, Southern California, and the rest of my family, I have two brothers and a sister, and my mom and dad have passed, and they were all born in Oklahoma. So, and he built churches in Oklahoma, but the Dust Bowl hit, so it was time to move west. And the first place that he landed was in Long Beach and then Baldwin Hills. Then he built us a home in Beverly Hills. And he worked for a contractor there a building developer who had started Rossmore, which was the first walled community. And he was one of the first people, my father, to come up with a concept of building a model home. So instead of just trying to build a lot of different homes, he says, well, what is this going to look like? He says, well, we'll just finish one and we'll then furnish it. What a concept. So I was very proud of my dad because he, came up with that concept. So when these tracts of homes were finished, he got an offer that he couldn't refuse, which was to go to San Bernardino to build tracts of homes there. And so the developer there was David Bruce. And so he bought us a house on Valencia Boulevard in San Bernardino. And I started the 9th grade at Golden Valley Junior High, which was on Waterman. Now I understand, Chuck, right? It's now called a middle school instead of junior high. And it was a little bit of an adjustment to go from Beverly Hills, and I was in Westwood at junior high and the 7th and 8th grade. And that's always kind of a difficult time, I think, for kids going from being 12 to being 14, those tweener years. That's why they separate them, because only the parents sometimes can love those tweeners. But I was very grateful to meet a wonderful group of friends with whom I am still friends with after years.
So you talked about your father and his very distinguished career as an architect. Now, your mom obviously was a very important factor in your life. And, you hear stories about stage moms, because usually the father in those times was the breadwinner, so to speak. And so the mother had a little more flexibility with her time. So she had to have been taking you to these auditions, right? In Hollywood, in Los Angeles. Tell us about your mom.
Oh, my mom was great. She was an RN, and that's how they met. And they were in Oklahoma City, and my dad I'm not quite sure. I think he may have been having a gallbladder operation, and she was his nurse. Well, it was a relationship built at the hospital. So they fell in love, and she continued being a nurse until they had the first child. And then, as you say, she had 3 kids, and so she was really looking after them. When they got to Los Angeles, she was a very industrious and smart woman, and her mother, Gertrude, lived to be 101. Wow. And she immigrated from Austria when she was just like 18, and she then did a boarding house during the Depression. And then she moved to Los Angeles and built an apartment house. And then she built other homes. So she was like into real estate. And my mother picked up on that and had my father design an apartment building in LA, at 16 unit that she kind of overseed and was the manager of. And then I was getting into the business. I was at 3, I was at the Meglin Studios, Ethel Meglin. That's where Shirley Temple was discovered. Now, I wasn't Shirley Temple, but I could sing and dance and even act. So, so she became my manager. But let me tell you something, my parents saved every single penny of my money. They never spent anything. And even though, you know, a lot of the parents, they take a salary as a manager, and, you know, and many times they should get something, because she would take me on interviews, and they paid for the singing lessons and the dancing lessons and the piano lessons and all of that. So I think that they should be entitled to something. My parents never took anything for doing that. My mother just enjoyed it so much. And even when we went to San Bernardino, she would drive from San Bernardino to LA to take me on auditions. But it was, you know, it was a little bit of a drive. And I did go on but if they were a good job, like I went on an audition for Gidget, because I'm just like 5'1". And so I would have liked to have played Gidget. But there was just so much going on with my high school and studying, and I did do a very good job in school. And that's why I was able to go to UCLA along with Marilyn Horowitz and Ellen Gaynor, and Ellen became my roommate in the co-ed dorm, which was a new kind of concept at UCLA. So, but my mom was great.
So your mom had to take you out of school sometimes to drive to Los Angeles during the day, but it didn't seem like it hurt your grade point average at all. Were you taken out of school very often, or she did it judiciously?
Well, when I was a child, I was taken out a lot. And when you're under 18, they have to provide a welfare worker, they were called, which is actually a teacher. And you have to spend 3 hours out of an 8-hour day in that school and being taught. And you can only count 20 minutes. So you have to at least be there 20 minutes. So those 20 minutes then add up to 3 hours. And I was working a lot as a child. In San Bernardino, they would try to make the interviews after school. And that was for all kids. So they wouldn't have to particularly take them out for an interview and not take them out of school. So just when they actually got the job, I didn't do that much work while I was in San Bernardino, which I think is a blessing, because as I said, I could always play younger, and they wanted 18-year-olds that looked younger. So as soon as I turned 18 and then I was at UCLA, I started really working a lot again. Plus I was in LA.
Well, you mentioned the fact that you actually had to audition for the part of in The Miracle Worker at Pacific High School, but it had to have helped that you already were a working actress.
Well, this is what I told Mr. Williams. I said, look, I've done all this work before me. You know, I did the 10 Commandments. I was in The Night of the Hunter. I was Patty Duke's friend, you know, the Patty Duke Show. They says, I should have this part.
I'm not sure yet which country I'd like to serve in, although I do lean towards France. I think France is going to loom as a big diplomatic problem.
Can I ask you something?
Sure. What is it?
When are we going to see this letter you got from Kozlenko?
Monica, if you knew anything about the mechanics of diplomacy, you'd realize the letter is now being examined by G7.
What's G7?
I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to divulge that.
How about the answer to your second letter? It's been over 2 weeks since you wrote it.
You really don't understand, Monica. Everything we write to each other has to be weighed and reviewed by the experts on both sides. That takes time.
And imagination.
You're suggesting I made the whole thing up?
I'm suggesting that you turn the whole thing over to James Bond, because frankly, I'm bored with this whole scene.
But I think really convinced him was that I was the senior. This was my last year. So that's what helped as well. And it was actually funny. I could save this story, but how I got the role in Family Affair, I was at UCLA, and I still had my same agent that I had ever since I was a child, Hazel McMillan. And so, and she did a lot of radio. She did Armis Brooks, the radio part, Gloria McMillan, and then she went on and then she did the TV version. Her mother became an agent and was a very good agent and was my agent. She was like the top children's agent. I can't believe I'm talking so much, and I had one cup of tea.
No, you have a lot to share, and it's truly captivating to listen to your story. So you were leading up to how you got the part on Family Affair. So how did that happen?
So I was at UCLA, and I was a Pi-Phi, and I still had the same agent, Hazel McMillan, and I get a call from my mother. And this devolves back to what a good mom she was without being a stage mother. And she says, oh, you have an audition this afternoon, and it's for a show, for a series. The series has already been sold, and they're just missing one character. And you have to be there this afternoon. I said, oh, well, I didn't have a car then. So, and she says, the other thing is that they want a blonde girl for it. Well, at that time, I did not have blonde hair. I had dark hair and I had brown eyes. That was what I had when I played a slave in the Ten Commandments. She says, not to worry, I'm getting some streaks and tips. Now, people of my era and that lived in San Bernardino or wherever, it's a kind of stuff that you spray on your hair and it instantly turns it blonde. So she scoots on over to the Pi-Phi house. She it sprays my hair, and I look like something out of Goldfinger. I mean, and you'd go like this, and it was like a helmet. I said, Mom, she's fine. It's fine. You look great. And so I went over there, talked to the producer creator. He says, what's with your hair? My hair? And he says, yes, it's turning green. I said, oh, isn't that funny? Probably just the light. There's something. And so it was okay. And that was my first audition for the series. And that was my mom being Johnny on the spot or Kathy on the spot with some streaks and tips and transportation over to Desilu.
So you landed the part in a series that was well received on television. And tell us what a typical week would be for you as an actress on that show. I mean, everything I've ever read about television production for something like that is very long days. And of course, you have to learn your lines for the next day shooting.
What was interesting about this particular show was that it followed the Feddersen method, and which was begun with My Three Sons. Don Feddersen was the producer. At that time, which was in like the mid 60s, television was still kind of coming into its own, and movie stars did not do television. I mean, that was just not something that was good for their career. So Don Feddersen had the idea that he could get a movie star to come and work in his TV series, and they would only have to work 3 months out of the year, and the rest of the time they could go do their movies. And the thing that really sold it to them was that they would get a part of the profits for the show. So this was very good for Fred McMurray, who liked that idea for My Three Sons. So when Family Affair came about, he tried this same kind of lure for the stars. So he started out with Glenn Ford, and Glenn Ford didn't want to do it. But Brian Keith had just done the movie with Haley Mills and showed his fun comedic side. And so he said yes. Now, what happened, however, this is a big story getting back to how your week was. We were doing like 39 episodes of the shows instead of 8 that they do today. B, all the scripts had to be finished at that time, because C, we would shoot all of Brian Keith's scenes for each episode in one day. So we would shoot everything that he's in for all the episodes, and he would leave. And then we came back and we picked up all the scenes that he wasn't in, and that's how we did it. So in one day, if it was Brian was there, they would do all Brian's scenes. And if Brian was gone, then we'd be shooting scenes from like maybe 3 different episodes in one day, which went on for a week. And me, I was over 18. The kids, as I had mentioned, they could only work 5 hours. 3 hours had to be in school and an hour for lunch. So their time was limited. Sebastian Cabot, who played Mr. French, had some physical problems. And Brian Keith was, just Brian, kind of playing Brian. So I was the one that was there at 6:30 in the morning doing hair and makeup, and I would do my scenes. They'd say my close-ups for the end of the day. So I'm there at 6:30 p.m. still working after everybody else had finished, and I'm getting like bags down to my cheekbones. But that was a week.
Okay, over to your room, Jody.
Good night, you guys. Good night.
Good night.
And you hop into bed, miss.
Good night, Uncle Bill.
Uncle Bill? I just wanted to tell you, I think you're the smartest person in the whole world.
Smarter than Miss Pringle.
Much.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
So that's very, very intense. Now, you indicated that sometimes you'd be shooting scenes from several different episodes, and of course, they're not necessarily in the order that they were presented in the final product. Was that difficult as an actress to be able to put yourself into that space, into that episode when it was so disjointed from everything else? That would be, it seems be very difficult.
It was hard. And so you would just have to use your imagination, put yourself back in. They always took photos, so you could recall some of the things that you were feeling because you could tell it on your face. Poor Thelma Strom, who was our wardrobe person, she had to match everything exactly. There was one time when I think it was in the 4th season, and there was this great medallion that I wore. I was supposed to be a hippie. And I would go back to UCLA during the summer. And so I remember being asked to go to this hippie party. And I didn't exactly know what a hippie was, but I had this medallion that I could just borrow from the set and take with me. So I would look more like a hippie at the party. So 2 months later, we're doing the hippie scene and the ones that I'm in. And then Thelma says, now, where's that medallion? Where do you see the medallion? I said, oh, I think the medallion's at my house. And so that caused a little flurry because we had to match it. She sent somebody out to Hollywood and said, this is a picture of the medallion. Get something that looks like this, or get this. They didn't have something exactly. So if you go back to that particular episode, you'll see one medallion and then another medallion that's just a little bit off. And that's the story behind the medallion.
How funny. How funny. So obviously you're part of a hit television series. So then when you would go in public, I'm sure that you were recognized. What was that like?
The first time someone recognized me, and that was really after the first episode was shown, and I was on an elevator at Bullock's when they used to have Bullock's, and going down, actually it wasn't an elevator, it was an escalator. I said, oh, I saw you last night. Oh, you were so good. And I said, I was? I said, yeah. And I said, oh, okay, thank you. And when people started asking me for my autograph, I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, I don't, you really want me? Well, I don't know if I could do that. And then my manager then finally said, it's like giving somebody a gift. It's okay. Don't feel, shy or nervous about it. I said, okay. So I've been giving gifts out a lot. So I autograph my books.
Yeah, I'm sure people appreciate getting the book and your autograph. So it seems like during the the heydays of the studios and even in television, the people who were starring in these television series were set up with other prominent actors on dates. mainly because they wanted to feed the fan magazine scene, right? Did that ever happen in your career when you were, say, doing Family Affair? You were supposedly dating somebody and it would cause a buzz among viewers?
Oh, yeah. And that was during the era of Photo Play and Photo Choice and all those magazines when they didn't, have Entertainment Tonight, or they didn't have the social media, et cetera. That was the social media. So I had some pretty cute fix-up dates that I enjoyed. I really liked Shel Raston. He was just so handsome. And oh my gosh, we had the same manager. That's why we went out together. He married Charo. And so that actually they were together for a long time. He unfortunately committed suicide, but about 4 years ago. But anyway, I really liked Shell, and there was Dak Rambo. That was another setup date that I really liked. And Michael Christian, he was on Peyton Place. And so, a couple, and then Clint Ritchie, he was another one I really liked. And that kind of went over into our real lives, and we started dating, and they were doing photo shoots of us at different places. But I really liked Clint and Shell. But I married David.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of young girls who read those magazines and watched you on Family Affair who thought they wish they could be Kathy Garver.
Well, I did a couple articles, and columns each month in a couple of the magazines. What's it like to be on a TV show, or how can I change my hair, or things like that.
Did you receive fan letters?
Yes, I remember one time, and I always thought that this was a joke when you would see them on TV. But here comes my dad, looking like Santa Claus with an entire sack of fan mail. I said, "You are kidding." He says, "Nope." And he says, "I'll help you." So he would help me get the photographs together. Sometimes people would send me money in the mail, just, "Oh, I really enjoy you, and here's $5." I said, "Oh, okay, thank you." I don't know. Sometimes people still send me presents, which is I really like, but
Well, how lucky you are.
Yeah,
You mentioned the fact that as a younger child, that you were in the movie The 10 Commandments, and you were picked out of the cast during shooting one day by none other than Cecil B. DeMille. Can you talk about that?
Well, this was very early in my career, and I had done The Night of the Hunter with Shelley Winters and Robert Mitchum. Chris Mitchum, actually, this next week, I'm going to see Chris Mitchum, who I think I don't know if that's his son or his grandson, but anyway, we're going to a film kind of festival in Virginia. But anyway, I diverge. So Robert Mitchum and Shelley Winters and Lillian Gish, who was great. So I had done that movie, and I did a little a thing on Artemis Brooks. And then I got an agent, and she says, "Well, this is just an extra role in the 10 Commandments, but it's a big film, and you should do this." I didn't even know what an extra was. I was like 7 years old. So I go to Paramount, and I put on the robes, and we are in a scene of the Exodus, and I'm sitting up in a wagon, the little lamb, and all of a sudden I hear this big voice, and it says, "Don't let that little girl's face get in the camera." I said, "Who's that? Is he talking about me? Is that God?" Because he was way up on this big crane, and this person that was saying that, shooting, I guess, the whole panorama of this little town and all these people exiting. So anyway, I did the scene. I got down. He came down from his crane. We talked. And then the associate director came over to my mom and said, "Well, looks like Kathy's going to be on this movie a lot longer." Well, it turned out I was like on the movie for like 2 months. And he wrote scenes, those the closing of the Red Sea took a lot of time. But he wrote scenes with me and Charlton Heston, which was really good. And I was there during the closing of the Red Sea, which was very exciting. So that was I have a whole long story, but that's in one of my books.
What was Charlton Heston like? Here you were 7 years old, and he was already a movie star. with that big voice and obviously a very handsome man. What was he like?
Well, I was just a little girl, so I didn't know he was a movie star, and I didn't know if he had such a particularly deep voice. I do know that when I was up on this little edge and of this paper mache mountain, sitting there, this very awesome looking person comes up to me and asks me, "Are you afraid?" And I said, "No, but Rebecca is." And then he scoops me up and takes me off the mountain. That's one of the scenes. And so I looked at him as my savior because I was an actress. I knew how to act. I knew how to, memorize the line and then just talk to the person and imagine myself in that situation. So I thought that was kind of nice of this person that was coming to save me from any impending doom.
Have you got Rebecca?
No, I haven't got Rebecca. Here's the kneading trough. Sling it on your shoulders. This is a blessed day.
Where's Rebecca? Here's Rebecca.
Ben, Caleb.
Thank you.
Can we take the cattle? Moving to the gates, horn and home. Rachel, help me with this brick yoke.
Benjamin, don't forget the oil. Here's the lamp. Oh, now, where are we going, Naomi? Some land flowing with milk and honey.
I never tasted honey. Anybody know the way? Away from the whip. Freedom won't wet your throats in the desert.
So it's interesting that you had so much confidence and naturalness as a 7-year-old as an actress. Did you have any formal training before that to be an actress?
Well, it was because I started at 3 years old at Meglin Studios. And when I was 3 years old, we were at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, which is this great big amphitheater where elephants trod the boards in Aida, the opera. And here I am, this little tiny girl, but I'm with my other, and Ethel Meglin was a fabulous teacher. And so I know that I'm supposed to, do my tap dance and listen to the music. And I know that I'm supposed to go off, when it's time. And so I had that type of training already, and if you can be on, where elephants trode and on the boards at the Shrine Auditorium when you're like 1.5 feet tall, I think that gives you confidence. And when people say, wow, oh, did you like that? Oh, okay, I can do that again.
I'm going to ask you a question that may be difficult for you to answer. What's the difference between a truly great actor and, say, a mediocre actor? I mean, some people they call the natural. It sounds like you were a natural, but what's the difference between, let's say, a Meryl Streep and someone else? We know she's brilliant. She's a genius. There's Marlon Brando. What's the difference? Maybe if we knew what it was, you could bottle it up. But I mean, you've seen it from the inside and the outside. Is it possible to answer that question?
Well, personally, I think in acting, and I taught acting and I taught voiceover for 20 years, but to me, you're really a good actor when you call on who you are. In my estimation, you can't be anybody than who you are. You have your own heart, you have your own spirit, and you have your own light. And being able to turn on your light when you want it to be it's a skill, but you have to be, you have to be knowledgeable of your own light in the first place and let that shine forth. And to be a character, that's just putting on, clothes and maybe walking a certain way, maybe changing your voice, but it's still me talking. And so it's, I think some actors don't get it, and they just, I'm supposed to be I'm an old lady, but I'm an old lady. It's different. You have to call on yourself. And I think that some of our greatest actors do that. I think there are a lot of Academy Award winners that are all politic, and that there are certainly much better actors that should have gotten awards that didn't. So, but that's a whole nother discussion. But essentially, I think to really be an excellent actor to move people, like I moved little Donnie in The Miracle Worker. I mean, not that I am applauding myself too much. I was given some talents. I thank God every day. Thank you, God. And I intend on using up all the talents that he has given me as long as I live. Because I do think that that's a special thing. I think people have to recognize why they're here, purpose-driven life. My purpose-driven life is hopefully to inspire people, make people happy, entertain people, have joy, things like that.
If you look at an actress like Katharine Hepburn or an actor like John Wayne, essentially they were playing themselves in almost every movie they were a part of. And I remember a few years ago when the movie 42 came out about the life of Jackie Robinson, the baseball great. In that film was Harrison Ford, who played Branch Rickey, who owned the Dodgers at that time. And I remember when he came on screen, I didn't realize it was him. And it took me about 10 minutes to realize that this was Harrison Ford. So if that's the first time I ever really noticed with Harrison Ford that he was character acting.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like there's a difference between those kind of actors, character actors who can be somebody else completely different, and then those actors who essentially were themselves in all of the movies that they made. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but anyway, I think that's a very interesting answer. You talked about letting the light shine through. Mm-hmm. and have it come from deep inside. So I appreciate you answering that question, because I think a lot of people couldn't answer that question.
Also, I think that you can be a personality actor and use your own, your own personality in many roles, but at the same token, you can also be a character actor. And I think that they are two, but they can meld together. And if you are going to be a specific character, as I said before, you're going to, do something different with your hair and the way that like I'm older now, and now it's, now I'm really Hogan, and I'm younger, so you have all those skills that hopefully you put in your skill package as an actor that you can call on if, you're supposed to play a particular character. But I think it still all comes back to you're essentially who you are. It's your heart beating.
So again, you've had such a distinguished career as an actress. What were some of the other projects that you were involved in that you were especially fond of and proud of?
Well, I also do a lot of voiceovers, and I've done like 60 audiobooks and won like these Audis for it. But I recently did a rendition of In the Presence of Greatness, which is a book about Patty Duke. And I've known Patty, I knew Patty for a long time, ever since we were like, I guess we were like 17 and I was on her show. So I really enjoyed doing that book. I felt like she was right by my side and almost guiding my voice, because that's another thing when you're doing an audiobook, you might have 30 different voices. And if you're doing a young girl, or you're doing kind of a guy, or you're doing someone, just kind of straightforward, and all those different kinds of voices will be attached to different characters. But Patty's voice, just kind of came into my head and my heart and came out my mouth. But I really enjoyed doing that. I'm looking forward to a lot of projects I'm doing today. And it seems that I'm very busy, even though that I'm well up there. I was just cast in this movie that we'll be shooting in LA called The Yellow Bird, where I play a woman who has dementia. But it's a comedy and it's very funny. My mother unfortunately had Alzheimer's, and so I had a relationship with what one goes through for that. But so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm just finishing up a movie called Old Man Jackson, and we have a pilot for a prequel and a sequel to Family Affair called Aunt Cissy, and so that's being pitched. And so there's I'm still looking forward to my signature kind of role. I love playing family. I loved playing in Family Affair, and my character Cissy. I love the Ten Commandments. I pretty much, I must say, I pretty much like everything I've done, and I am very happy to say that I've never really done an X-rated film or R-rated film, and there's been 3 or 4 things that I have turned down when they make old people look like they're just old people and stupid, and well, something was going on in my head, but I think I should probably not say that. But you know, I said I turn those things down. I don't think that for me goes along with what I want to be doing with my life. I want to be nice to people. You know, that takes some time when I'm angry at people. But you know, I want to inspire them. I don't want to insult people and bring them down.
I've read about actors who can't watch themselves on the screen. How was it for you when you would watch your movies or your television series? How was that for you? And even looking back on those, what is that experience like to watch yourself?
I like to see me, you know, and I'll say, well, that's better than I thought it came out. And I said, oh my gosh, she should have put her hair back a little bit, and she should have had some more light up over here. I was a little rushed today, but because I'm looking myself as I'm saying it. So no, I learned from it personally. I like to see if it came out all right. And then when I would watch I watched Family Affair when it was first on, and it was interesting from a production and directorial point of view, the way that they might take one scene that was at the beginning of the script and then put it towards the end, and then take another scene and then put it back here. And they would rearrange the entire story. So I learned a lot from that, because I had the original script, and I said, I'm wondering why they're doing that. So to me, it's a learning lesson. I've never understood why people can't look at themselves in a particular thing.
Yeah. What advice would you give for actors or actresses wanting to get into the business now?
I think it's very important to develop as many skills as you can. Learn how to speak. And one of the classes that I taught when I was a speech major at UCLA and a psych minor, and then blah, blah. So I think that you have to have as many skills as you can, and you have to learn to speak properly, because even though, and this goes for voiceover or doing a character or being on stage, learn to develop your voice if you want to reach someone in the back or whatever. Learn to be very quiet if you're, doing a film. But if you don't know how to speak in the first place, then when you have a role and they say, oh, well, we can't hear you if you're mumbling. He says, what? If you're mumbling. But if you know how to speak properly, oh, are you saying I'm mumbling? Oh, do you want me to mumble or not mumble? We want you to mumble. Okay, I can mumble. I said, no. We want you to speak clearly. The audio person can't hear you. Oh, I can mumble. I can mumble, or mumble, whichever way you'd like. But you need to have all those things. You need, so I would say, learn how to speak clearly, and then learn the different modes of acting, learn the different styles. If you're doing a commercial, or if you're on stage, or if you're on film or TV, or if you're doing comedy, and practice.
You kind of inferred something about a difference between acting on the stage and acting for film or television. I remember reading something about Henry Fonda, who came from the stage. And when he first arrived in Hollywood and started to do some acting before the camera, they said, you need to sort of attenuate the volume, because in the stage, you're trying to speak so that people in the back of the theater can hear you. Whereas in front of a camera, for television or movies, it's much more subtle. And it sounds like you were talking about that. That's a big difference, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you have to be aware of those differences. I have a tendency to just be very big just because that's the way I am personally. So I have to bring myself way down. And and not like move around if I'm, but I've learned that, how, because in Family Affair, we had big close-ups. And that was, again, a Feddersen method to really get your audience to know that person. And then Ed Hartman, who was our wonderful creator, producer, writer, says it's in the eyes. So the eyes are going to be telling the story. And so you have to be thinking and having the emotion come through the eyes a lot, because you can't go, oh, because that'd be great for, Oedipus, but it's not too cool when you're playing Mary.
You indicated that your parents were smart enough to save all of the money that you had earned as a child actress. But there are a lot of child actors and actresses who didn't have parents like you did, who really ended up with nothing. And so I know you're a part of an organization called the Minor Consideration. Could you talk about that group?
Yes, I mean, child stars have kind of a tough road to hoe. And I am good friends with Paul Peterson, who started the organization, a minor, MINOR consideration for these kids. And he passed what is called the Coogan Law. Now, Jackie Coogan was a great big child star in the 20s, 30s. He made more than any adult stars. He was being paid the most. And when he got to be like older, he had absolutely nothing because his parents spent every single dime. And so they finally, and Paul, and got a law passed. And so a child now has to have a contract, and a portion of whatever they are paid has to be put into a separate account for them and through a bank, and it's saved there and nobody can touch it until the child is 18. Unfortunately, like my son, I put him in a couple things, a proud mom, and he did Nash bridges and things like that. And so I saved his money diligently and the Coogan account. And I said, Reed, now, you're 18 and here's a little 18th birthday present. Gone in a week. So sometimes, but just having the account and saving it, you also need to put in there a little financial training so the kids know what they're dealing with.
So the organization, it sounds like the purpose of the organization, a minor consideration, is to spotlight this issue and to at least give kids who are acting something to look forward to do maybe after the peak of their child acting.
Right.
And
it isn't just the financial thing like the Coogan Law, but there's actual training. Not every child, and I say that in my book, Ex-Child Stars, and I wrote this nice book about child stars. Paul Peterson wrote the foreword, actually, to my book. We're good friends. I just saw him last week in Palm Springs. So there are classes. You don't necessarily have to be an actor to be deemed successful. There are a lot of lawyers who were ex-child stars and teachers who are ex-child stars. There are many positions you can take behind the camera as a cinematographer. Look at Ron Howard as a fabulous producer, director, as a lighting person, as a gaffer. There's all kinds of different roles. Makeup artists. Lisa Loring, that was on the Munsters, became a wonderful makeup artist. So he tries to say, oh, okay, there's lots of things, and you have all this experience because you spent your life, naturally just, absorbing it and soaking it all up. So that's that part. Unfortunately, this is the saddest part. So many of these kids get into drugs. And again, I was just so blessed that I never really got into drugs. I only do Boone's Farm, but now it's Chardonnay. But they drugs, and Paul helps them with that. And because you get depressed if you don't have something, you become that tweener, and you don't have a job, you don't have your public relations or your hairstylist or people saying, oh, you're so cute and you were fabulous. So a lot of the drug culture seeped into the child star war and still into the adults. I mean, a lot of, and Johnny Whitaker that played Jody on Family Affair. He was into cocaine and this and alcohol, and he was Mormon, and his family said, look, if you, and he was then destitute. He had spent all his money. They had a divorce, and then he got on drugs. And he says, and they said to him, look, if you don't get off drugs, we're going to divorce you as a family. Well, that kind of hit him at home. And so he got cleaned up and he became a drug counselor. And so he's now on a good path. And unfortunately, the little girl on our show, who is the brightest light and adorable and so sweet, died of a drug overdose when she was just 18. So many of these little lights go out because they don't have, I think, the guidance. And I think Paul and A Mind of Consideration helps that. Many times poor Paul has been, well, you know, he took this on at 3 a.m. in the morning, and or somebody's in jail and needs his help, you know, for drugs or something like that. And he goes and tries to help.
Who are some of your favorite actors and actresses?
I love Mark Harmon. I really like Mark Harmon, and I'm surprised that NCIS hasn't gotten more, you know, Emmys and everything else. But you know, that's again very, very politic, and I think that he's very good. And of course, then I like Blue Bloods, and I like those two shows. And Hawaii Five. Those not the actors so much on Hawaii Five-0, but that whole show is so beautiful. The cinematography on Hawaii Five-0 is about the best, but I like Mark Harmon.
Well, you and a lot of millions of others.
And he's been happily married, and I've been happily married for 40 years, 41 years. We just had our anniversary, but he is very cute. I enjoy watching him, but he's been married to Pam Dauber. She was on the thing.
Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, Mork and Mindy. She played Mindy.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, you have been a delight.
Thank you. Would you like to know how people can get in touch with me?
I sure would.
Well, let me tell you. You can go to www.kathygarver.com. That's KATHYGARVER.com. You can read about San Bernardino in my book, Surviving Cissy, My Family Affair of Life in Hollywood. That's on my website as well as Amazon. Might as well, since I'm being so self-promoting, tell you about my other books, which is Ex-Child Stars, Where Are They Now? And if you like to cook, I have a cooking show that we are doing. I was just executive producer on this one show called Idle Chat that was on Retro TV. But we have another pilot that we've done called TV Dinners TV, where I'm the host. And we have child stars and classic stars, and we come and make healthy meals instead of the TV frozen ones. How you can make those meals. That's my book that's supposed to be out this year, TV Dinners. But the first cookbook I wrote was the Family Affair Cookbook. And this one is a nice one called the Holiday Recipes for a Family Affair. I am celebrity grand marshal of the Strawberry Parade in Garden Grove for Memorial Day weekend. And I have a recipe in here called Strawberry Trifle. So I'm giving people a copy of the Strawberry Trifle recipe when I go to the Garden Grove Strawberry Festival. And that's going to be really fun. And so I'll wave to all my San Bernardino and Inland Empire friends if you come see me. Now, this last book that I just came out with is the Family Affair Scrapbook. And one of the reasons I did it is because I have to say it. It's the 55th anniversary of Family Affair. I do not know how that happened or why I graduated Pacific in '63, since I'm 39, but there it is. But this is the Family Affair Scrapbook, and this is really so colorful. I love doing it with my see, it's like a pop culture. See, it's backwards. It's like a pop culture kind of fun. Lots of pictures, lots of memorabilia. The Family Affair Scrapbook. This is a collectible version, and they have a printout version. And my Facebook is Kathy Garver /fan page, and also my Kathy Garver group. So I think that's That's all the self-promoting I can do at this moment. Come see me at the parade. I have my movie coming out, Old Man Jackson, this year. And take a look at my books.
You are amazing. Thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Chuck. I really enjoyed talking with you.